Welcome to Inside Scoop Live, the podcast where indie authors get personal, sharing insights about their books, their writing journeys, and their passions. I'm your host, Sherry Hoyt, and I invite you to join me for engaging conversations with both debut indie authors and seasoned veterans. Whether you're looking for your next great read or a bit of inspiration, you've come to the right place. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Celia Straus returns to Inside Scoop today to talk about her latest children's book, Charlotte, a Yellowstone Wolf Pup. It's a heartwarming story about a curious little wolf pup who dares to be different, reminding readers that individuality and loyalty can go hand in hand. Before we get started, here's the inside scoop on the author. Celia Straus is an Emmy-nominated writer with a career spanning television, film, books, and children's literature. She's written nationally broadcast concerts for PBS, award-winning series like Kids Speak Out with the United Nations, and several acclaimed books ranging from poetry to military memoir. Today, her focus is on children's picture books, where her love of storytelling and collaboration with illustrators brings characters like Charlotte the Yellowstone Wolf Pup to life. And you can learn more about Celia Straus and her work at celiastraus.com. Well, hi, Celia. Welcome back to Inside Scoop Live.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a lot of fun to talk about books that I've done, and this is a welcome opportunity.
I love all of your children's books. I love the dual purpose of teaching kids, without teaching them, just kind of having fun with them. And the message that you're supporting causes as well is always something that is near and dear to my heart. Let's talk about Charlotte. Tell us a little bit about the book, what it's about, and what inspired the story.
Okay, I will. But before, let me address what you were saying, because really Charlotte fits into my personal sort of rubric or framework for the books I write, in that I do always choose an animal or an insect, in the case of a monarch butterfly, that is endangered.
Mm-hmm.
And I always make sure that my portion of the royalties or proceeds go to support one of the organizations, nonprofits, that work to educate and preserve the animal in the story. And in this case, it's the wolf in Yellowstone National Park. And in fact, wolves throughout the West of the United States are considered endangered. And so Charlotte, a Yellowstone Wolf Pup, fits into that framework. And then the other thing that I always do is dedicate the book in terms of the title and the main character to one of my grandchildren. And Charlotte is the name of the middle daughter of three little girls, and she is 3 years old, going on 4, and very much like Charlotte, a Yellowstone Wolf Pup character, is very independent and can cause a ruckus when she doesn't get her way, and yet at the same time is devoted to family and doing things for her younger sister and her older sister. And so I found that Charlotte's independent streak fit nicely with the story that I was creating when I was thinking through how to put it together. So Charlotte is about a wolf pup in one of our national parks, Yellowstone, probably the most famous of our national parks.
Yeah.
And is really about the life of a wolf. And it covers from the time she is a pup in a pack of puppies, wolf pups, through the spring and the winter as she grows and matures. And in the beginning is a loner, but then learns that the only way to really survive as a wild creature, and certainly as a wolf, is to join a pack, that you can't really be what we call, and that's, I think, where it comes from, a lone wolf. A
Yeah.
lone wolf is someone who doesn't like to play with others or goes out on his or her own. And Charlotte starts out that way as a puppy. But then learns from her mother and from the wolf pack that she needs to join the pack. And as the weather gets colder and winter comes on, there are more and more reasons for her to run with the pack in terms of food and shelter and warmth and so on. And then the other main character in this story is the alpha queen. And the alpha queen is the leader of the pack. And generally in wolf packs, the leader is a female. And so the female, who is her mother, is called the alpha queen. And often, reading books about wolves, they call the lead wolf of a pack the alpha wolf. So I called her the alpha queen. And she puts up with Charlotte's shenanigans, but then finally says, okay, time to shape up, Charlotte, and join the pack. And then the story takes an arc into and somewhat of an exciting adventure because Charlotte is able to use her special skill or character trait of being very fast, a fast runner, to rescue her mother at a time when she is in trouble, being confronted by an enemy pack. So there's a sort of a loop that's closed. Young puppy on her own, and then joins a pack and learns about what it takes to be a responsible member of the pack. And I think that that's a lesson that can be translated by parents and to young readers that it is important. It's important to be self reliant and be yourself, but at the same time, there's a loyalty to family and a reason why you want to and can celebrate being a part of or a bond of family.
Yeah, what a great story. I love that. You talk about Charlotte, how she learns to balance her independence with her loyalty to the pack. What did you want to explore in that tension between kind of standing out and belonging? Because that's definitely a big part of it.
Well, I think that most children, and certainly teenagers, want to go out on their own. And as they mature, and or even as you talk about troublesome twos, they develop a sense of independence. And as they develop who they are, as they become gradually aware of who they are, in relationship to those around them. And gradually, as they grow up and develop a sense of self, which is important because
Mm,
we want our children to do that, to develop a sense of who they are in relation to their friends and siblings and parents. So that I wanted to make very clear in the character of Charlotte. Once again, thinking about my own grandchild, Charlotte, and how she, I think more than her older sister or her younger sister, maybe perhaps because she's a middle child, struggled with what it takes to be Charlotte. So that was very important to me. And then because it's a nonfiction book about parent children relationships, but it's a children's illustrated 34-page exciting story,
yeah.
then I needed to quickly jump to her relationship with her mother and the importance in wolf packs and also, quite honestly, in a family of the mother, and in this case, the alpha queen. So it was, I think, the most difficult part of developing the story was portraying the alpha queen's responsibilities to feed and take care of her pack in a way that was acceptable and appropriate for the young reader.
Mm,
And
yeah.
and that's partly because this was the first time that I was dealing with characters, wolves, and wolves are carnivorous and can fight and chase down other animals and kill them for food.
Yeah.
And I needed to make that clear without going too far into the reality of the life of a wolf.
Yeah. What kind of research went into telling the story in that manner and also age appropriate?
Well, first of all, I read a number of books. The most prolific and considered the expert on the lives of wolves is a writer named Rick McIntyre. And he's written a series of books about usually wolves in Yellowstone, just because that's where he's spent most of his life observing and writing about wolves. I read several of his books, but the one that I found particularly useful is called The Alpha Female Wolf: The Fierce Legacy of Yellowstone's '06. And in Yellowstone, it's interesting, they number the wolves so they can trace them throughout their whole life cycle.
Oh, wow.
And so he studies wolves, and in the case of this book, wrote a whole story of his following this particular wolf, who is in personality very much like the alpha queen. So I read a number of books about wolves. I watched several documentaries about wolves. And gosh, I just became really interested in their lives and how they exist and reproduce and what makes them so challenged and endangered, which makes sense. Herders and people who breed sheep and cattle and animals that provide obvious dinner
Mm.
food for wolves want them gone. I mean, they shoot them. There's permits for hunting wolves in Yellowstone that
Oh
are
my
given
gosh.
out all the time to hunters. And there's a limit to the number of wolves they can kill. And that was because the Wildlife Federation, the Greater Yellowstone Coalition, and the defenders of wildlife and the people I dedicate my royalties to have pushed to keep some protection for the wolf.
Yeah.
But it's a real push-pull between breeders of animals that the wolf would naturally hunt and preservationists who want to keep the wolf, alive and part of the life cycle. Take Yellowstone. So Yellowstone has buffalo and elk and moose and
Mm.
deer and rabbits and wolves. So the idea is, and this would be the case in any national park, the argument is that you want the wolf to be part of the network of life, very much like Lion King.
Yeah.
The it's part of the whole cycle of life that Charlotte is a part of. And so the book is, I'm hoping, teaches a bit about that.
Yeah. Well, it came across as very authentic. You've written a number of children's books, so maybe it's just old hat to you, but that sounds like a very difficult thing to get right. Just balancing truth with in an age appropriate manner, and you did that very well.
Well, it was hard. The hardest part actually, and I solved it. I don't know if I solved it well or not, but the alpha queen goes out to get, it's winter. So everybody's in hibernation, but she has to feed her pups. So she goes out, and instead of killing a moose, she finds one that's already died out of, who knows, illness.
Mm,
So there was a frozen moose carcass that I put in towards the end of the story that is the basis of the standoff between the alpha queen and an enemy pack. So I didn't have to show an actual taking, killing of
right.
food. And then in the very beginning, there's a little hint of it when she says, Charlotte, get back with your brothers and sisters into the shelter, the cave. There's a grizzly bear and her cubs, and she's out hunting for food. So even though that doesn't really break it down or get into the weeds, it's just a hint that
Mhm.
there's danger lurks around all the time.
Yeah, yeah. It also gives us a little bit of insight into Charlotte's character too. She's curious and independent, and she's got to kind of balance that, with also following her mother's rules.
Right, right.
That's a
But
lot for a
once
little
you
one. So you talked a little bit about the theme of individuality. You also connect individuality with generosity and love. Why was that important for you to highlight alongside Charlotte's story?
Well, to begin with, Charlotte is not interested in what most wolf pups eat, which is a carnivorous meal of whatever the mother brings them. Actually, what in reality happens is the mother wolf kills something and takes her fill and then brings the pups to eat. But Charlotte isn't interested in that. She's happy with grasshoppers and berries and dancing among the wildflowers. And it's interesting because I have a good friend who actually goes out every winter and they have these sheds that are heated and you sort of crouch down in them and with binoculars and telescopes and observe the wolves of Yellowstone. They have them set out all over the park. So
Mm.
I knew he knew wolves, so I sent him the text of the book before I gave it to the illustrator. And he came back and he said, I had no idea that wolves eat berries and fruit and grasshoppers, but I looked it up and you're absolutely right. Wolves do eat that.
Huh.
And the reason I picked that for Charlotte was because my own granddaughter is very picky about, for instance, for a long time, she would only eat foods that were green,
Oh, wow.
which was okay. Her
Yeah.
mother, who actually Julia, who is quite an alpha queen on her own, it was okay. I mean, she ate broccoli, she gave her broccoli and avocado, and there are enough green foods and honeydew melon,
Mm.
green grapes, but I'm just using that as an example of the individuality of both the child and the wolf.
Yeah. Wow. That's that's so interesting. And crickets, they're just like little snacks, I guess, huh? Now, as Charlotte steps into leadership in a surprising way, can you tell us a little bit about that? And then how do you see maybe her growth as a leader in the story? And what kind of leader might she become as she grows older?
Well, as her mother says, she could become leader of the pack. Well, she steps into leadership out of a need to rescue her mother. So she doesn't step into leadership naturally, but
Mm,
I'm not sure. There, I must confess, I have a feeling the wolf of a pack that steps into leadership probably has a certain amount of to and fro with the current leader. I mean, I'm not sure it doesn't involve some sort of a fight or a
mm,
but in this case, she is very fast. She's a fast runner. And so when she follows her mother, which is typical of Charlotte, the wolf, and quite honestly, the little girl, she follows her mother against the rules and sees that she's under siege. So she
mm,
sees her mother being attacked. Now she knows as a child, as a that she's not going to be able to help her mother that much alone, but she has learned the value of the pack. So
mm.
she uses her skill of running fast to go back to the pack and bring it. I think they're 13 in the pack at that point to where her mother is in this standoff with an enemy wolf pack, which happens all the time in these national parks. And all of a sudden, the enemy pack is way outnumbered and runs away. So there's a confrontation, but it does not turn violent. Charlotte uses her skill to bring the pack to help her mother, and in so doing, illustrates at the climax of the book her ability to lead the pack. She
Mm.
brought the pack back to help mom, the
Yeah.
alpha. So the last lines of the story, the alpha queen says, one day you could be the leader of the pack.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's just an amazing for a young pup, but she's had time to grow and learn and watch her mother too. So, um,
Exactly.
there's nothing like
Role modeling. Right.
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Now you mentioned the illustrator and the illustrations. Tell us what it was like to work with Maria Hahn, your illustrator. I love her illustrations. They're so warm and playful. What was it like collaborating with her? I know you work with different illustrators for each one of your books. So
I have. To me, the illustrator is everything. The words are the easy part compared to the illustrations. And what I do is I do not look for an illustrator till I have written the whole book, because I want a potential illustrator to see the big picture.
Mm.
There are no real surprises when they send me their portfolios. And what I do, Sherry, is I usually go through one of the art schools like Rhode Island School of Design or Carnegie Tech or any one of the colleges and master's programs. And I put out a request
Mm.
or illustrators. And I say, okay, here is the story. And if you're interested in, throwing your hat in the ring, send me your portfolio and we'll see what happens. And for me, I will have a wonderful illustrator. And for you, you will have had an opportunity to illustrate a published children's book.
I love
And
that.
so with Marie, that's how it worked. And she, first of all, I was charmed by the fact she said, my favorite thing to draw is dogs. And she's in her portfolio were
Oh, wow.
several pictures of adorable dogs, one of which is very much like Charlotte. But the other thing that she did, which just touched my heart, was she made a trip to Yellowstone.
Oh, my goodness.
She was going out west anyway. I can't remember the logistics of it, but she went through Yellowstone, which is why in this book particularly, where the landscape plays an important part in all the seasons, the trees, the wildflowers, the mountains, all aspects of the landscape are absolutely spot on. They
Mm.
reflect the landscape of Yellowstone. And then, as you know, at the end of this book, there's coloring pages. And
Yes, I love those.
and I came up with that. And it's funny because I have not seen a children's book that does this, but the publisher of all my books has all these, I guess it's a formula where you have to have X number of economies of scale. You have to have X number of pages to put a book together, printer.
Mhm.
And so there are always a few blank pages at the back of my books. And I thought, well, that's silly. So I asked Maria if she would not do new illustrations, but just take some of her black and white sketches and we'll stick them in the back of the book and invite the young reader to color them. So that's what we did.
That's a fabulous idea, and I love that. Yeah, I mean, why have blank pages at the end of a book? I mean, people are gonna flip through them looking for something. Did I miss something, so have
Right.
something there for them to do. I love that. Yeah, great idea.
And it's
Yeah.
also much so interactive. It's much more engaging. So
Right,
the child, if he or she has read the book, and it's an opportunity to individualize it for them.
right, and I love the way you work with your illustrators. It's definitely a collaboration.
Totally.
Um,
Every book that I've done then you know what they are because you've reviewed them, is a back and forth and back and forth. First, they do sketches and we talk about those. And sometimes a illustrator will say, I just can't get this right. And I'll say, well, what if I change this line? Would that help? Um,
mm,
so we do black and white sketches until we really get those down and then they go to color.
yeah. Now what is this, your 5th or 6th children's book?
Let me think. Sophie, Red Panda, Livy, Little Honeybee. This is the 4th.
Okay, okay, nice. So, how many grandchildren do you have left, and
I
how many
have
more books can we expect?
I have 2 left. 2 left. Layla, who is a year and a half, and Chloe, who is a year. But I need to wait till they're old enough so I can really discern their personality.
Right.
They're too young for me to really get a clear glimpse or look at who they are.
Now you said Charlotte is 3.5,
Yeah,
going on 4.
she's a
What does
boy.
she think about having a book named after her?
Oh, she loves it. If you go on my website, celiastraus.com, there's a video of her talking about the book. She's thrilled. In fact, I'm going up there. The family lives in New Canaan, Connecticut. I'm going to go up there in a few weeks and go to her pre-K class and read it to the class.
Oh,
So,
how fun. Well, I guess, to wrap things up, we know children fall in love with animal characters. I think it's so important in children's literature, animal characters. What do you hope, young readers will remember most about Charlotte after they close the book?
Well, I think the same thing that I feel about Charlotte is that she is completely relatable, that she's a cute character, that she has her stubbornness and her independence, but in the end, she's courageous and brave and brings the family to rescue the Alpha Queen, her mother. And that's an exciting story. I mean, when you think of, classic children's books about animals, whether it's Winnie the Pooh or Charlotte's Web or The Jungle Book, or children do, you're right, love animal characters. So I want them to love this little puppy.
Oh, well, I'm sure anyone who reads the book will fall in love with Charlotte.
Thank you.
Yeah. Did you have anything else you wanted to add today for listeners?
No, not really. It's been a wonderful interview. I urge your listeners to go on Amazon and take a look at Charlotte in paperback and hardback, and also visit my website, celiastraus.com. And I will be working on the next book soon enough. And it's always, always a pleasure to work with you and Susan at Reader's Views.
We love working with you as well, Celia. Thank you so much for sharing more about your latest book with us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today for my interview with Celia Straus, author of Charlotte, a Yellowstone Wolf Pup. You can learn more about Celia and her work at celiastraus.com. And be sure to check out our other interviews at InsideScoopLive.com.